You were listening to Words Off the Street, a discussion with police, fire, and EMS writers. We bring you their take on your world. Stay tuned for your host, BJ Schneider.
You're listening to episode 11.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Words Off the Street. In just a short bit, I'll be interviewing a longtime friend, Sean Fitzmorris. He worked at the health department and is currently an RN. We'll also be doing some new news and noteworthy information that includes tidbits from the 2017 EMS and Charity Hospital reunion, as well as a request for support of a good friend, Red Hewling, who is currently suffering from cancer. Take a minute, listen to the show, read the show notes, but right now, let's take care of some ads.
Today's show is brought to you by Xephos Books Training and Public Speaking. Xephos Books is responsible for the short story collections Welcome to New Orleans, How Many Shots Did You Hear? And Volume 2, Welcome to New Orleans, The Life You Save May Take Your Own. These collections are true stories from the author's years as a cop and a medic in the Big Easy. Xephos is also the publisher of the adventure fiction, A Salty Life and a Traitor's Death. This is a tale of a modern-day smuggler and a pirate caught in the middle of a fight for gold on the high seas. These books can be found on the website, xephosbooks.net, as well as your favorite ebook outlets. Xephos Books also does training in areas such as tactical medicine, safety, and arranges for public speaking at your function. So go to www.xephosbooks.net, that's Xephos Books, XIPHOSBOOKS.net, sign up for the newsletter, or visit their Facebook page and follow to get the latest news and releases.
This week in new news and noteworthy, I think we're going to go right to the noteworthy part. I've got a request for everybody out there. Went to the EMS reunion this week, and we'll talk some more about that in a minute. Found out that my former boss and a good friend, Red Hewling, is currently going through chemo for pancreatic cancer. Red was in charge of EMS services for a long time. He's been a firefighter, he's been a medic, he's currently an RN as well. He's dedicated his life to public service. And as everybody out there knows, since he dedicated his life to public service, he doesn't have any money. So we want you to go out there and go to his GoFundMe page at Rally for Red. There'll be a link in the show notes. And make a donation. Anything you can do would help to help him with all these bills and all the financial obligations that come along with battling through this situation. I, of course, learned all this information as we were going to the 2017 EMS reunion. It wasn't just EMS for the city of New Orleans. It was police, fire, and Charity Hospital alum. It was a great time. We saw all kinds of people there. There were at least 100 people who attended the festivities. I got to interview quite a few people, and I'm going to go ahead and tack on a couple of interviews with this. First thing you're going to hear is Gerard Oncow. He put all of this together, and we'll hear about what he did to get this all started. After that, I'll have some random clips from some of the folks that were there. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. I'm here with Gerard Oncow. We're sitting down. He promised me he would sit down with me after we had the group picture so we could talk about...
Did we have the group picture yet?
So that we could talk about what was going on here and how this all came to pass. He's not wanting to talk to me, but I'm cornering him and trying to get him to make a little speech for us. Tell us, how did this all come about, Gerard?
I always want to talk. Actually, there wasn't much putting this together. You pick a place, you pick a date, you make a Facebook page saying, here's the event, and everybody makes it happen. You know, everybody here wants to see each other.
What was different this year is you did the GoFundMe page. That looked like it turned out pretty well. How do you feel that went?
It went very well. The last couple of years, we've had a professional photographer that I've paid for out of my pocket because I knew everybody wanted pictures of the event. And I mean, everybody's got their phones, but no one's going to have the complete event picture. So I've been paying the photographer out of pocket. Well, this year I was talking to a friend who said, you shouldn't have to pay for that. You know, everybody's willing. I'm willing to contribute. So I set up the GoFundMe page. And yes, it made enough to pay for the photographer.
And I think that was great because most of the people are interested in helping out, and everybody has a great time. So I don't think anybody had any problem. You had some pretty big donations on the page, which are real. Anybody you want to give a shout out to for their donations?
I do, but I'm not because some of the donations I received were anonymous.
We'll definitely keep them that way. But a great turnout as always. Very happy and look forward to it. I'm going to let you get back to socializing, but thanks for sitting down with us.
Anytime.
Hello, everybody. We're back at EMS Reunion 2017. I'm with Patty Hasney Sharon and Gretchen Thomas.
Helms Thomas.
Gretchen Helms Thomas. He's got to kill me. And we're just sitting here talking. These are some old partners of mine. Some that I tortured voraciously over the years. Lisa's back. Lisa had sat down with us earlier. Say hi, ladies. How are y'all been?
Hello, we're awesome. Peachy.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm just peachy.
So what's everybody up to? Patty, we were talking earlier. You're doing...
I'm living the dream, honey.
Living the dream. Aren't we all?
No.
I'm a registered cardiovascular electrophysiology specialist.
And you could still say that after several drinks. I'm impressed.
Several beers.
So I'll tell you what I do. I do a lot of customer service now. I am a team lead for Catapult Health. I make everybody's life wonderful.
Make everybody's life wonderful.
I do.
We're taking selfies while we're talking. The evening has progressed, folks. We are quite a few drinks in, and it is making things interesting. Patty, tell me, what was the one thing that I did that was the most annoying all those years that we partnered together?
We were the best crew.
Okay, so if anybody who does not know me, let me explain to you that I am a very OCD person, and I like everything nice, neat, and in its place.
I lose my phone all the time.
Clean, sparkly, and powder puffy all through the world. So my ambulance was always very, very clean and neat. You could eat off the floor. In some cases, it would annoy Brett so much that I cleaned the ambulance that he would in turn try to annoy me. Right? So he would lick the windows, put fingerprints on things. Then I immediately had to stop and start cleaning because that's what he knew I would do. Another thing that Brett did that was quite lovely is that he wanted me to quit smoking.
No. Let's get this right.
220.
Patty said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Brett, I would like you to
quit. So I did ask Brett. I would like you to help me quit smoking. So, EMS, especially in the old days when we rocked like we were supposed to, it was busy. 18, 20 calls a night. You get stressed out. You want a cigarette afterwards.
Tell us your story, Patty, please.
I asked Brett to help me stop smoking.
And did he help you?
Well, in his own unique way, he did.
And what did he put in your mouth instead of a cigarette?
I tried to light up a cigarette, and as I lit the cigarette, he took my whole pack and licked all the cigarettes in it and doused it down with all of his meaningless juices. Is that how the story goes to you, Brett? Is that how you licked my pack of cigarettes?
I licked your bag of cigarettes. I also remember injecting your cigarettes with some sort of cleaner so that when you lit them, they tasted poorly.
Yes, you did do that. Yes.
I was excellent at helping you stop smoking. You did not appreciate what I did.
No. You pretty much sent me into a seizure.
Brett, you were a trendsetter. That was back when smoking was cool, and you were not a smoker and tried to get people to stop.
If you ask me for my help, I am going to do everything I can in my power to help you, especially if I thought it was funny.
Okay, so the smoking thing did not set me off as much as the messing my ambulance thing up.
Yeah, there was just something I didn't love anything much more than licking the tips of my fingers and putting fingerprints on every cabinet in the back of the truck.
After I'd already Windexed them all down with newspaper, because newspaper, FYI, does not cause streets.
Patty, your OCD puts you on the autism spectrum, and we love you for it.
And, you were the one that after I armor-all the seats, slid into the well.
Hence treating her so poorly because she armor-alled everything down and then would slam on the brakes
and
so that I would body check the walls.
Yes, we did armor-all the seats. It made them nice.
And I, by the grace of God, was never her partner. Thank you, Lord.
Look, anybody who got in my ambulance felt confident in my skills because I'd have got in and said, this is a beautiful ambulance. These people know what they're doing.
Yeah, because that's when drunks get in the back of your ambulance. That's what they do. They see how clean it is.
Look, I didn't let drunks in the back of my ambulance. That's Brett. No, he may puke and mess it up. They don't get in.
And there was no birth and no babies in that truck. Not if Patty had that truck.
No. We're gonna
Don't bleed on my truck. Don't puke on my truck.
Oh, no, we're going to do that on the outside.
You can only sit on the cot if you're actually sick. Correct.
Yeah. If there's any bleeding or vomiting involved, we need to take care of that in the house or on the scene.
But if you were a kid, you got a free stuffed animal.
Oh my God, do we have to hear the story of the stuffed animals?
You know you love it.
She was on it pick up clues for the stuffed animals, everybody.
Okay, so initially, I only gave stuffed animals to very scared people. And then they did this like news story or whatever. And I got all these freaking stuffed animals. The funniest thing is our Red, who we love very much, and he's not feeling well right now. But I would come into work and Red would call me into his office and he would say, Patty, get in here. There's 3 more boxes of them damn stuffed animals out there. Can you do something with them? So anyway, after the television show aired, I had so many stuffed animals that everybody who got back in my truck got one, whether they wanted one or not. They would go, I really don't want that. No, you're taking it.
Gretchen, your turn. Tell us a little something about,
What you want to know?
I don't know, you talk poorly about me or Patty. That'd be fun. I know you'd feel good about that.
Let's talk about you, Gretchen, because this is going to get interesting.
Gretchen, you and I hardly ever worked together.
I
think we
what
only
was
ended
that
up on the
about?
truck just a few times. I don't know.
I think they were afraid that we were going to
I can understand that.
consummate the ambulance.
I think what it was in their mind is they thought that that's way too much trouble waiting to happen there.
But I will tell you this, and I have a buzz, but you were a phenomenal paramedic. You gave every
I'm
call
blushing.
your all.
Oh, yeah.
Every patient your all. I can't say that about myself, but you gave everyone your all every day you came into work.
Shout out to
And
you,
I'm
Brad.
proud to know you.
Thank you.
I was, really and truly, when I was your partner, I was an intermediate. Then you moved on, and I became a paramedic. And because of you and Mad Dog and other people like you, made me the paramedic that I became. I may have been a Mary Poppins version of you guys.
Guys, I hope you're getting a visual picture of a Mary Poppins version of me. So just keep
that's
that in
what I
mind.
became. A Mary Poppins version of Brett and Mad Dog.
Yeah, because she had ghetto nails. Patty always had ghetto nails and a full face of makeup, and her hair did. Always, for every shift she came on. She was 45 minutes early, so she could make everyone as happy as she was. We shouted out to Mad Dog.
The second collection of short stories that I did is dedicated to my swing shift partners because there was 4 of us at the time, and 3 of them had passed away. Brian Bordelon, Frank Petta, Raymond Mendola, and I were the swing shift for a while.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And we were, you would fight between me and Rhonda Serenay.
Well, I'll tell everybody right now that if it wasn't for Raymond, I couldn't have had a writing career, since at least half of the first book is Raymond stories.
Okay, let me tell you this story that I remember.
Story about his dog.
Okay. Before I sign off, I do have to relive this one vision of you and Mad Dog. Do you remember the blown up poster of Mad Dog sitting on your motorcycle, his Harley Davidson, in a thong? I took the picture.
I think that is the first story. It's called Pinup Girl. It is the second story in this book.
I took that picture and helped Mad Dog get it blown up, and then Mad Dog and I are the ones who plastered it all over Brett's locker.
I so wish I knew where that picture was today.
Oh my God. Yes. So that was my doing. And the only other thing that, I don't know if Brett remembers this or not. I don't know if you were there. But do you remember me piercing Mad Dog's nipple in the bar?
Yes.
With my earring. Yes.
Yeah.
We did a nipple piercing. Oh, no. Mad Dog was a monster. No Lottie, no nothing.
But an earring is not the right size for a nipple ring.
Yes.
When you keep forcing it, it'll...
Well, no, yeah, and then I had this earring in my ear, and they said, well, we don't have a ring for it, and I was like, here, you take this. So eventually, actually, Mad Dog and I were married for about 1.5 years until he changed out the nipple ring to something else. So, Brett, it's been awesome talking to you. I know you love me. More than your luggage, love.
It is time for a fresh glass of wine. I thank Patty and Gretchen before she wandered off for being here.
We love you, and you are.
Thank y'all so kindly.
Back at such good memories, love.
Wow, with all of that good times, what else can you do but move on to another great interview? Take a listen to Sean Fitzmorris and enjoy. Welcome, Sean. Thanks for coming on Words Off the Street. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
We've known
Nice
each other for years. We worked together for so long at the city. We don't get to talk that often, so it's great to get you on here. Do the same thing to everybody when they first come on. I hit them with my opener question. What's the first book that you read that really left a lasting impression on you?
Ooh. Ever? Like in my whole life?
Oh, yeah. You know, was there something that you read coming up through school that kind of just resonated with you and it's kept with you for years? Or was there something that you read that suddenly inspired you later on in life?
Gosh, there's been so many. First one I read that I always remembered was Alas, Babylon. It was like required reading in my freshman year at high school. And it never occurred to me to read a book for pleasure. But I got into that, and it was sort of this apocalyptic post-nuclear war survival story. And it was just fascinating. I remember so many little small details about it even to this day, and that was about 40 years ago. And still to this day, I think about it.
One of those ones that just sparked your interest in that genre, or just in reading in general?
Just in reading in general. I don't really read that many sort of post-apocalyptic things. That just happened to be the book that the teacher had chosen or whatever. But no, ever since then, I've just thoroughly enjoyed reading almost anything I can get my hands on. I do read a lot of science fiction, a little bit of crime stuff. I'm reading a book right now called Career of Evil. And it's been quite enjoyable. But reading so many things and then getting it broadens your mind a lot. It makes you think about things from points of view that you had never really considered. Eventually I thought, well, I could do that. And so I got into writing. I started off with writing a blog. I've still maintain a couple of blogs. And then finally I wrote my book, Found Wanting, a few years ago. That started off really more as therapy, though.
Well, we just at a round table week before last, well, we were discussing writing as a means of catharsis, and it was pretty much across the board that one way or another, the type of stuff we write, whether it's fiction, whether it's nonfiction, it's a way to work through a lot of emotional things that happen on the job that stay with you.
Yes, it is. Exactly. That's one of the things I found out as I started writing, is how cathartic it was. Because especially working in EMS, you know how frustrating it can be. I won't even go into all the details of all the sources of frustration.
Go any further with that? A little bit about your public safety background, your time in EMS, and what you're doing now.
Started in EMS in 1991. That was my first EMT basic job. I was at a private service for about a year. Then I went to work at the city in 92, I believe, and stayed there for on and off, more or less, for 19 years. I've finally got off the ambulance in 2010. Now I work full time as a nurse in the emergency room, and at the time I was working in the ICU. But I worked all the levels of EMS at the time. There was the basic, intermediate, and paramedic. I've worked all of them, mostly at the city, and 2 other private services, as well as a flight paramedic on a fixed-wing aircraft.
And all of them have their own particular levels of stress and interest. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, they're all different. No more or less stressful, just different.
As you started writing with your blogs, first off, how did that come about? What was your thought process to move and begin to do that?
In the 90s, I found I got my first computer, discovered the internet, and thought, hey, this is a great way to disseminate stuff or absorb information, which, of course, that's what it's there for. And my friend of mine, oh, you know him, Brian Bordelon. Brian Bordelon
Yes.
wrote a lot. He submitted a lot of things to my blog, and I wrote a lot of things under my name as well as my pen name, which is Jack Riley. And we just sort of tit for tat, wrote stories and articles. I guess not trying to outdo each other, just trying to complement one another. Grew into a great little partnership there. That was called Burning Tiger. That was my first blog I ever made. It's still out there somewhere.
Nothing ever goes away on the interweb. It's
no, nothing ever goes away for sure. I wrote a couple of
Brian. I was just going to say Brian Bordelon was a big inspiration with me with his writing, and he was a partner there on Swing Shift with me for years. So
yeah,
my last collection of short stories is dedicated to him, Frank Petta, and Raymond Mandola, because that was my 3 Swing Shift partners.
Oh, really? That's quite an entourage you have there.
And I'm not really sure, you think about that, I'm like, those 3 guys, unfortunately, all 3 have passed away now, and I'm the only one left, and that's a little nerve-wracking after a while.
You were wondering when the fickle finger of fate's pointed at you.
That Dre, you look around and go, did I just miss the dice roll? Was I out the room for a minute?
You turn around and think, where did everybody go?
But all great guys, which is why the book got dedicated to them. But definitely Brian was the one with the writing flair, English background. He definitely knew his stuff.
Oh, he was brilliant. Bitter, but brilliant.
And I think you can say that for a lot of us, that the bitter part at least.
Oh, I know. So, I've gotten that way.
Let's talk about Found Wanting. Speaking of bitter people, I found Found Wanting to be a fantastic book, if not a mite disturbing. Tell us about it. I can guess where the inspiration that came from. After reading it, I saw a lot of these patients that were talked about. I know where those frustrations were, but tell our audience. Well,
it was a time when just I had been in EMS for 19 years, and it was just very frustrating. It just felt like the frustrations were getting worse and worse all the time. And there was no outlet. You hear about things like critical incident stress debriefing and such, and I never really availed myself of that and never really saw the point of it. Besides, it never addressed the day-to-day frustrations. You know, you go to EMT school, you go become a paramedic, and you learn about trauma and saving lives and how are you going to deal with this big injury or this critical sickness. And those calls, those were never stressful. The big traumas, the gunshot wounds, the dismemberments, that's why you went to paramedic school. And everyone loves those calls because that's what you're there for. The frustration came from the everyday people that we'd transport. We transport certain people multiple times a day, every day. The people that were ungrateful, uncooperative, even attacking you in the ambulance. It was absolutely, I don't know if there's a stronger word for frustrating. It was infuriating. Especially when come to consider that in the end, you and I are paying the ambulance bill as well as our hospital bill and whatever. And just that always in the back of my head, just stuck in my craw.
And then it compounds on you after a while, because unlike the gunshot victim who you may have a little stress dealing with that call as you work through it, but it's done when it's done. A lot of these patients you're talking about, you would see night after night, day after day, for years on end. So they got to be like that horrible old uncle that came over. You just couldn't get rid of them. Yeah, exactly. And there were times when you would hear that one of those frequent flyers had died, and you would actually genuinely rejoice over it because you thought you would never get rid of them. But then, of course, there was always another one waiting in the wings. And the moment that one of them would pass away, then there'd be another one that you'd start picking up every day. And it was just aggravating. And
the worst part is so many, you get to know these people after transporting them every day. You have a half an hour conversation with them and you get to know them. And you find out that a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but a fair amount of people contribute nothing to the world, nothing to humanity, like a parasite, not even a symbiotic relationship, but just suck up resources, whether it's an ambulance ride or welfare dollars or, I mean, I'm not against welfare, don't get me wrong, but the type of people that contribute nothing to the betterment of humanity or even just the status quo of humanity, whether it's art or taxes or music or raising a family, something that contributes to humanity in general, even in a tiny way. There's lots of people that don't do that and just are a drain on society. And those are the people that would become the object of my hatred and my infuriation, to the point where I thought I would go to work and think, the world would be a better place without these drains on society. But I can't. I was actually thinking, like, I would euthanize these people just to put them out of humanity's misery. But you can't do that. You can't just go around killing people. Even though I know that sounds awfully dark, especially for a paramedic, a first responder.
But I think a lot of people there can understand that frustration and that feeling that.
Oh, sure. After you've been doing it for a long time. Absolutely.
And you were able to find a direction to turn that and put it somewhere, because people ask all the time, what was the impetus behind you finally leaving the city? And it's one of those things that you can only take so much. And after a while, when the urge to cause pain to certain patients is higher than the want to help the other patients, then it's time to step away, because you're not going to do good for the overall population.
Well, that was one thing that I was actually worried about when I was writing the book before I started writing the book, is I would have these very dark thoughts like I just described, and then I looked at my paycheck and it wasn't that great either. So fortunately I had already gone to nursing school. I was working full time at the city and part time as a nurse, but it wasn't really working full time as a paramedic, wasn't paying the bill. So the main reason I left the ambulance was just to go work full time as a nurse and to pay the bills a little more easily because it's better money. However, I did find that once I started writing Found Wanting, how therapeutic it was, and it let me get out my frustrations, get out all those dark thoughts, put it on paper, read it and experience it in my head, in my imagination. And it enabled me to go to work and tolerate it so much more easily, because I'd finally found a way to get those dark frustrations out without actually hurting anybody. You can't kill people in real life, but you can do it all you want in text. And that was amazingly cathartic, therapeutic for me. I really enjoyed it. It started off just as I never intended to write a book. I would just post it on my blog. These ideas I had of killing people, and I came up with ways to do it that a paramedic could definitely get away with. And eventually, after I'd post a chapter, and then people would say, "Oh, that was great. When's the next chapter coming out?" And I thought, "Next chapter? Oh, I guess I could do another one." So I'd do another one, and same thing. When's the next chapter? And so it just kept on going on and on and on until eventually it sort of developed into its own, monster, and eventually just self-published it. And it sold pretty well. Paid my internet bill for a year or two there. I still get hits on it.
And you and I have talked about it before. You haven't done very much marketing with it, or not a lot of pushing at all with it, and it's traveled pretty well. I think it gets fairly well known in EMS circles, and I know those of us who discuss books like this say that that's a great place to go to understand some of those stressors, and let's not say we're not going to give this as a how-to, but maybe a how-to to vent on paper. Not kill any of our patients. We're not going to recommend any of that. But I mean, it's a
please don't kill any patients.
We don't stand behind those actions on this show, but it's a great way to show how you could take those frustrations and point them in another direction and get that focus somewhere else and get it moving along, and how it turns into a positive, beneficial thing. Not only does it help you vent those frustrations and make your day-to-day working better, it turns around and puts a few dollars in your pocket and entertains a lot of people, and it becomes an overall positive experience instead of that gnawing frustration you deal with every night.
Exactly. That's exactly how it turned out to be. I even after Katrina, I talked to a psychiatrist. They had the psychiatrist for all of EMS and all the firefighters and everyone. And they asked me about my coping mechanisms. I said, well, I do a lot of writing and get it out on paper, and a few other coping mechanisms that I use. And they said, you seem very well adjusted. You have very good coping mechanisms. You don't need any prescriptions or anything. I thought, well, great. Not needing any prescriptions. That's the best news I've had all day.
Are you currently working on the follow-up to Found Wanting?
I've been working on it for 5 years. Actually closer to 6 now. I found after I stopped working on the ambulance and I started working full-time in the ICU, my desire to murder almost disappeared. I was much less frustrated, and I felt much more balanced as a person and as a healthcare provider. For the past 3 or 4 years, I've been working back in the emergency room, and I can start to feel myself getting a little frustrated, but I'm working on my zen, on being in my happy place now. However, I do have about 5 chapters of the sequel, or not sequel, the prequel to Found Wanting written, and I've been pulling it up and seeing where I can go with the plot and all that. The first book, Found Wanting, it's like I said, it started off as just therapy, and it grew organically. But now, writing a prequel, how did this paramedic come into his dark ways? I haven't actually come up with a legitimate plot, and that's one of the hard parts. How did he get this way?
Yeah, and you want to make sure you have that good story arc for him. You don't want to just have something that's
as well as not being. And I don't want it to be repetitive, and I don't want it to just be a story, a book of war stories. Like this happened, that happened, the other thing happened. We did that, we did the other thing. Let me tell you about this call. Let me tell you about this other call. Let me tell you about that call. That's not what I want. I want it to actually be something that develops.
I can understand that completely. I mean, I've got the 2 collection of short stories out there, and those books by far do better financially than anything else I have out there. But they're also, how would you say, the least creative, in the sense that, my fiction is totally different. It gives me someplace else to go and to think. I'm working on a fantasy right now, and that's just something that's completely off par to what I would normally write, and it's enjoyable, and it's a way to branch out and think where it's not the same stories over and over again, at least to my ears.
That would be neat to get out of your comfort zone and write something, outside of EMS. Or I try and do that every so often. What's that?
You need to start writing a sci-fi. You need to start writing a sci-fi. Then.
When I lived in Ireland, I started writing sci-fi. I lived in Ireland in 1990 and for about a year, and I had a typewriter. I started writing on a typewriter. I started writing a sci-fi story, but like so many things, I didn't finish it. Mostly because it was the first time I'd ever seriously tried to write, and I thought, this is either going to be really good or I just totally don't know what I'm doing. And, but then I got interrupted. I moved back to America a lot, and I lost all the paper I'd written. So that's one of the nice things about having computers is you can keep it forever. Like you said, if it's on the internet, it's always out there forever.
Oh yeah. And we'll see, and I've started several books. I've started them, you have that great initial thought. Maybe you have that first initial character, and I've written 1,000, 5,000, 15,000 words, and then I've shelved them because I either don't know where I want those story arcs to go. I really hadn't developed it enough, and I move on to another project. Always with them in the back of the mind to say, we'll go back to it if the impetus strikes me that I really want to move. Strikes.
Exactly. That's been my problem with the prequel to Found Wanting, which, by the way, is called Weight in the Balances. The impetus, the inspiration for it is like both are lacking. Both are lacking. I'll put it that way. But I want to. It's just the actual sitting down and staring at that blank page and typing. It's the typing that's hard.
So speaking of that, when you're writing your blogs or when you're working on the first book or part of the inspiration of the second, do you have any special time that you try to write? Do you have any structure? Is there anything that you do? Do you pour a good glass of whiskey and sit down and work on it at the keyboard?
That is usually one of my inspirations. A good glass of whiskey. I try, and if I can't write as soon as something interesting happens, like that might give me an inspiration, I usually try and at least jot down a note or maybe a little drawing of something and then describe it later, just to jog my memory or give me an idea of how I want it to be. One thing that I find that Ernest Hemingway was very right about: write drunk, edit sober.
I keep getting that backwards. That's part of the problem I have.
But editing it is one of the hard. That's really one of the hard parts. Going back and cutting out or adding to. I find writing is always easier to add to. Cutting out is like trying to amputate your own finger.
Oh, it's so hard to go back and tear away from the story that you wrote because you wrote it. You feel like it should be there. There's some reason it should be. Getting rid of it's always
difficult. But, you get those passages that don't contribute to the story, and it's just sort of word mental masturbation, and it's like, all right, well, this has to go because that's just not doing anything for the story.
See, I interviewed someone a while back, and we were talking about whether they outline versus whether they're a pantser, whether they just kind of write as the inspiration brings them. And they talked about how they'll do up to 60,000 words in an outline. I know people whose books aren't 60,000 words long.
I don't think Found Wanting is 60,000 words.
They'll do that much outlining as they build characters and different things. Now, granted, this is somebody in the fantasy concept who is building entire worlds and things like that. So I could kind of understand, but it still seemed like an amazing amount of work before they even begin chapter 1.
That is a lot of work. But I can see if you're building an entire fictional world, you would need some sort of structure upon which to base it.
You could easily work your way into a corner, I think, if you didn't lay that basis out.
Oh, for sure. Maybe that's why those books that you and I started and never finished, maybe that's why they never went anywhere, because we didn't have an outline.
Yeah, my first fiction that I wrote, which is a Salty Life, when I wrote that, it strictly by the seat of my pants. And it was going great. And at some point about probably 80, 70, 75% into it, I realized I was backed into a corner. I had written myself into a corner not knowing what to do with the main character, at least not knowing what to do interesting. I could do all the quick and easy contrived stuff, but I was like, oh my God, I've backed myself into this corner, and I literally had to do just what we talked about, break out the hatchet and chop whole sections of the book and back up and relay the groundwork because I hadn't thought ahead further enough. And it was definitely I'm not a major outliner, but I do try to have some sort of structure to know where I'm going now, because that was a horrible feeling, getting myself into a situation where I didn't know what to do, you know.
I can't go anywhere with this, yeah. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, it was like, okay, everybody sit down, get a cup of coffee, and we'll move on to the next book. So 70,000 words into it.
Yeah. That was one thing that I wasn't sure how I was going to end Found Wanting. I still don't know that I've really ended it. Sometimes I feel like it just stopped. But
well, I thought you closed it off well. That if you wanted to do a follow up, I mean, you definitely left some hanging issues that could be followed up with.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. And there's always the partner, like what happens with him, what happens with the main character's future. So yeah, that's true. I suppose I just didn't know when to stop or continue writing, so I just kind of brought it to a finish. But I like the way it ended. I like the way it ended, but I feel like I could have gone much longer building up the plot and the developing the characters and all that. That's one of the things I want to do with the prequel is make it a longer story, to get you more involved, to develop, some of the side characters. Like in Found Wanting, there's, the two main characters, Brian and Mark. Actually, I feel like Brian, who's the new basic, the brand new green basic, I feel like he's better developed than the main character is, because we never know why Mark is on his mission of murder. And then there's some other side characters that are mostly me. There's they're mostly aspects of me. There's one who is based on, you remember JoJo? Joanne is the paramedic in one of the chapters, I think chapter 8. And she is based on JoJo Colomb. God rest his soul. There's another one that died. Even one of the stories out there is like word for word out of JoJo's mouth, because I loved it. The one about expired like a visa.
Oh, yes. And I can hear it. I can hear it from his lips. Lord.
Expired like a credit card.
So when we talk about all the writing that you're doing, that you've done in the past and that you're doing, what advice would you give to somebody in public safety, whether it be, a medic who's been on the street for years, a cop, a fireman, who's looking to move into writing and he just doesn't know where to go, he or she doesn't know where to start? What would you tell him?
Write about what you know. Or write about what you would like to know. My friend Warren, you may know him, Warren Pope, he was a police officer. He wrote his own book, which was very enjoyable. The title escapes me off the top of my head, but that was very good. Write about what you know. Write about what happened to you. Then you can play with it. Create a plot, make a fictional idea, and the concepts of writing carry over to other genres. The message can be in any genre, really. Like what I would like to think is the message of Found Wanting about encouraging people to contribute some way to society, not allowing those that are drains on society to be that way. That can carry over to any other genre, whatever you're interested in, whether it's history or romance or science fiction or whatever.
I also found that write what you know, but if you're interested in something, like you said, the research can be as much as a positive influence on you, even if it never makes it to the paper. I've done hours of research on different topics that I'm interested in, that I think can develop in a story, and if anything, all they do is broaden my horizons. They make me, better for trivia night or whatever. So, at the very least, you're getting that out of it, and it goes a long way to making those characters feel deeper, that those cities, those places that you build feel more real as you write them.
And doing that kind of in-depth research makes it, even though you may not be familiar with that, whatever topic you're researching, if you can get some, I don't know how to say it, like inside lingo, some sort of thing that's like an inside joke that's particular to people that are interested in that field.
I had a guy who was a pilot, they were having a conversation at the same time that they were approaching an area to land. And I'm like, well, how would you do that? And I had to talk to a couple of pilots I knew, did the research, and kind of had that dual conversation where he's talking to the control tower and then he changes the conversation back to talk to the co-pilot, and he's back and forth. But I had to make sure that what he was telling the tower about coming in was all that was accurate, even though that had little to do with the plot. It just was something that was moving along as they were having this other conversation. So I had to do all this research just to kind of make that whole little section flow properly. And it was
right.
It was rewarding to do that, because when you went back and read it, you went, oh shit, that laid out very well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the sort of thing that it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of effort to do that, but it makes the finished product so much more palatable.
Well, let's jump on to a few casual questions as we wrap up in here.
Okay.
I always talk about what you're reading now, and you already kind of mentioned a little bit of it, but we know reading is a major part of writing. It's been said that if you're not reading, you're not going to be entertaining in your writing, because you need to constantly get that input. What genres are your favorite? Who's your favorite authors or favorite books that you've been looking at recently?
Recently, I finally read Isaac Asimov, his Foundation trilogy, which is very entertaining. I'm 2/3 of the way through. I'm reading this crime thriller novel called Career of Evil, which is very entertaining. One of my all-time favorite writers was Arthur C. Clarke. Absolutely love him. Rendezvous with Rama is probably my very favorite of all my Arthur C. Clarke books, and I wish they would make a movie out of it just to watch it.
You and I would both be disappointed, I'm afraid. It's
never as good as it.
The characters are so rich, and everything is so in depth in there. I think it would fall flat.
Probably so. Still, I like the idea.
I'm a major Heinlein fan, and
I love Robert Heinlein.
I'd love to see some of that, and then you go, no, I don't know how I'd feel about it once it came out, you know. Bad interpretations of it, so I don't know if I want to see anything else.
Yeah. What was one of his books that was made into a movie and it was so cheesy? Starship Troopers. Oh my God, that was so terrible, but it was such a great book to read.
Oh, I'll go back and read that several times, because the movie tried to hype up the political side of it, and the political science was a major portion of it, but not in the same way that the movie took it, and I think that's kind of what ruined it. But it was an amazing book.
Oh yeah, it was great. I loved it. So yeah, science fiction, that's like one of my weaknesses there.
Have you read Old Man's War?
No.
Oh my God, you have to go read it. Now, Old Man's War is by John Scalzi. John Scalzi is very much like Heinlein in the way he writes. And the book is amazing in its originality and its storyline. I'm not going to give you any more. I'm just going to tell you, go out and get it. You'll get hooked on him, and you'll end up reading a whole bunch of stuff that he's done. He's probably my favorite science fiction writer in the last 15 or 20 years.
I like it. I'm looking at it. I just bought it for my Kindle.
You won't be disappointed. I'll expect to hear back from you on what you think on it, because it's one that I constantly go back to when you're just looking for that I just want a good read that I don't have to that I don't have to worry about anything with. I can get into that and read it over and over again.
Oh, good. Thanks for the recommendation. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you already said Kindle. Normally my next question is ebook or paper. So,
well, the other book I'm reading, it's paper. I don't know. I bought a Kindle. I think I was probably had too much to drink one night, and I bought a Kindle online. Then I got it, and I thought, oh, God, what am I going to do with this stupid thing? Then I started reading a couple of books, and now I absolutely love my Kindle. I absolutely love it. I take it everywhere, you know, it fits in my pocket, and I have all kind of books I can read on it, tons of books. But then again, there is the nice actually turning pages and folding a page down to bookmark it, and you can flip through it. You know, flipping pages, that's got its own certain
something about a tactile
appeal to it. Yeah, the tactile sensation. Reading the cover of the book, you close the book and you can read the cover blurb again. That's always nice. It's not as easy to do that on an electronic device. So they both have their good and bad points. I can't say that I would stick with one or the other exclusively. It is nice that just now in 30 seconds I could buy that book that you mentioned just now, and now I have it on my Kindle.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to a bookstore or anything.
You'll have it started reading before you can even think about driving down the street to get it.
Correct. So that is another advantage.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, and I say, you know, I worked offshore on and off for years, and I've done a lot of traveling, so have you around the world. The thought of dragging 4 and 5 books with me when I would take a trip that would last weeks or whatever, kind of hard to do. You know, I can remember going offshore and carrying as much weight in books as I did in clothes, and think nowadays that if I had the Kindle back then, you know, 40, 50, 60, 100 books could easily be taken with me wherever I went.
Yeah, that would be a great advantage, and you don't have to weigh it down, or it doesn't have to weigh you down.
True enough. I always ask, I write from a very visual perspective. I usually write as if I'm seeing a movie develop in my head many times, and movies are a big hobby of mine as well. So what's your favorite films and why?
Ooh, so many.
Be for its writing. It can just be for the sheer pleasure of it. Whatever your thoughts.
One of my very favorite movies, I was just talking about this to my ex-wife, is The Quiet Man. John Wayne and the redhead. What's her name? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. But The Quiet Man is just one of my very favorite movies ever. It's romance, it's comedy. It's set in Ireland. I lived in Ireland for a year. My wife is from Ireland. It's just one of those things that I always think about constantly. I love all the Lord of the Rings movies. I truly do.
Maureen O'Hara. I had to look it up.
Maureen O'Hara. Oh my God. I had a brain fart. I could not remember her name. She's one of my favorite actresses. Lord of the Rings movies. I absolutely love those. What was this last Star Wars movie that came out? Rogue One? Oh, man, I enjoyed that as well.
Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, Sean. It's great to have you on the show. We need to stay in touch. Please tell all our listeners where they can find you and where they can find your work.
You can find it available on Amazon or Lulu.com. My book is called Found Wanting by Sean Fitzmorris. It's available in ebook, Kindle, or Nook, Amazon, and Lulu.
Excellent. We will have links in the show notes so that you can go directly to those postings and get Sean's books. Thank you very much, Sean. It was great having you on.
Thank you, Brett. I appreciate it.
Thank all of you for listening. I'm sitting here with my son, Blade. Say hi, Blade.
Hi.
Remember, you can always find the show at wordsoffthestreet.com. You can find us at Facebook at Words Off the Street. And you can always send us an email at streetwordspodcast@gmail.com.
Bye. See you next time.
You heard him. See you next time, folks.